Mrs. Swanson?
Here. Here.
Here, I'm real here. Mr. Johnson and Mr. Knicker are not here in person. Mr. Johnson is out of town at a work location, and Mr. Knicker is home with the flu. The Open Meetings Act and board policy state that it is permissible for a board member to participate by phone if he or she is unable to attend in person due to employment purposes or personal illness. All those in favor of approving Mr. Johnson and Mr. Knicker's full participation in this meeting, please say yea.
Yay.
Any opposed, say nay. That being the case, Mrs. Senator, do you want to call them present?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Knicker?
Yes.
Very good, and thank you for joining us by phone. And Ken, sorry you're not feeling well, and thank you for not coming and spreading your germs. We do appreciate that. Next on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Is Principal Sullivan here? Yes. Would you lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and now we come to communications with the host school.
Good evening, welcome, those of you that are here and those of you that are far. Very fitting evening that we would be talking about our future Jefferson at the latest and greatest nice new building, otherwise known as Hubble Middle School. Said to Dr. Harris tonight that it does seem a bit like deja vu. And wherever you are, Stephanie, we're going to get this one done. Told her that when we passed the Hubble referendum. So enough about Hubble, and on to better, bigger and better things. We have a couple of things for you tonight. We have 3 students, 2 of which are here tonight, that are writing contest winners. I'm going to have that teacher come up and introduce those kids real quick so that they can be honored by you guys. And then Jen Tavine will come up and introduce Patrick Bresnahan, and you're going to hear a little bit of an update on one of our new elective courses, entrepreneurship. And we have some future entrepreneurs over here chomping at the bit to talk to you about what they have done in class. So Andrea Fridley is our ELL teacher, and she's going to come up and introduce the TESOL Award winners. Andrea.
each year the Illinois Teachers of English. Okay. Each year, the Illinois Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages and Bilingual Education sponsor a writing contest. Students are asked to write essays describing aspects of their native culture that they want to share with others, including culture shock experiences and differences in customs and holidays. Winners receive a certificate of merit and a monetary award of $150 for first place, $100 for second place, and $75 for third place, which will be presented to students at the state convention in Lisle in February. For the second year in a row, Hubble students swept the contest, winning first, second, and third place. We would like to recognize these students for their outstanding achievement. Would these students please stand and come forward? Winning first place for the second year in a row, Katrina Lazowski. Second place winner, Eula Walling. And the third place winner was Abdiel Cabrera, who is not here tonight. We would also like to recognize their parents for supporting their children in their education. Will their parents please stand so we can acknowledge them? want to again say congratulations to all of them.
Good evening. We thought we would use this opportunity to update you about some of the changes to the middle school program. All of the new electives are in progress, and again, we want to thank the board for your support of all the changes we've made. It's very exciting to see our students engaged in these new classes that help to better prepare them for college and 21st century careers. And I have a few numbers I thought I would share with you to help you get a picture of the impact of all those new opportunities. As you recall, we've moved music into the 8 to 3 school day at the middle school level. Hubble is currently at an enrollment of 818, and we have 428 students currently taking a music class. That's well over half. We've also added Project Lead the Way STEM classes at 7th and 8th grade. We have 337 students taking a Project Lead the Way class, so about over a third of our student population. And then that brings us to entrepreneurship, one of the new 8th grade electives. Last spring when we did an assembly to talk about all of our new courses, some of these students didn't know what entrepreneurship meant. It definitely was a teachable moment. And we're very proud that 77 of them, that's around a third of the 8th grade class, decided to give it a try. And they've really learned a lot. The first semester class is just wrapping up, and next week they will be presenting their business plans. So with that, I will introduce their teacher, Patrick Bresnahan.
Good evening. Beth has reminded me of the time constraints, so I'll be very brief here. Again, we're going to be presenting what's going on in the entrepreneur class. So let me give you a little background on what's going on in the class. The class is designed around principles associated with project-based learning. In addition, we use a web-based platform that enables kids to access, share, and construct information, which is almost to the point where it's now a paperless classroom. We believe that this learning environment offers students with opportunities to learn and develop entrepreneurial literacies. And what I mean by entrepreneurial literacies is that the kids have an opportunity to read, think, write, speak, and even act like entrepreneurs, which is very consistent with the Common Core standards in the language arts area. So let me turn it over to the students, and they'll discuss their projects as well as their impressions of the course. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Austin. I've been working with Paul, Peter, and Nick to develop APIC in the software industry. Tonight, my colleagues will first talk about our startup, then what we have learned from the project and our impressions of the course. And here's Kyle to talk about the startup.
APIC is a software company that specializes in developing mobile enterprise applications for school. Our current app that we're working on is called iHub, which allows students and teachers to share information easier. We believe that the current 3-ring binder is problematic and out of date. Enter iHub. It has a daily planner, textbook, notes, homework, and grades, just like a regular binder, except we've also added a chat room, which allows students and teachers to communicate even when they're not in school. So how will we make money from this? We have 3 sources of revenue. We provide schools with an entire enterprise platform. Second, we offer school servers for an annual fee. Our third source of revenue is an annual commission from the online textbook publishers.
My name is Peter. I'm going to talk about what we learned this semester in entrepreneurship class. There are really 3 areas that stood out to me. We learned a lot of things about business, but what really stood out for me was the financial side of the startup. I learned that you have to account for every single expense. For example, when we were figuring out the costs we need to start up our business, it became clear to me that you need to spend your capital very wisely. Second, our group really learned to work as a group, which can be very hard, especially when people don't do the work they need to do.
we learned about technology. We learned how businesses use technology to communicate and collaborate. But we also learned about Java and Python programming to build our app.
I'm Nick, and entrepreneurship is a unique and valuable class that provides kids with unique learning opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. Entrepreneurship is one of those few classes where group work is something that really is encouraged. And it's also the only class where you get to learn a lot about business. So most classes don't require group work. And they just require that you're good at working with yourself. But entrepreneurship, you have to have a group, which is like the real life when you grow up. And you need to know how to work together in order to get by in life. The other thing that entrepreneurship teaches you very well is knowledge about business. Things that we would have never known about the technology that businesses use, the economics without this class. And I am Nick.
Hello, I am David Austin, and these are all my colleagues, Emma, Mario, and Leslie Latia tonight. So our subject in entrepreneurship class is a Girl Cafe, and obviously it's in the restaurant business. So I'll turn it over to Emma to talk about our startup.
Hi, I'm Emma. Our business is the Royal Cafe. The Royal Cafe will be located in downtown Wheaton. We chose this area because we wanted a place that would have a high traffic flow. We believe we could attract many of the commuters in this area. We sell coffee and choice bakery items, and we want our business to rotate around a green theme, which would mean that we would use organic and environmentally friendly materials. We want to express a relaxed atmosphere in our business and give our customers an enjoyable experience. Thank you, and this is Mario.
Hello, my name is Mario Humphrey, and the most unique aspect we've learned about in entrepreneurship was how to organize a business. To begin with, we go by the rule of division of labor. For example, we divide our work up equally into different tasks for each individual to complete. Also, we have learned about using the wiki on CoolHub, which keeps all of our documents and pages saved of all our work, so keep it organized. And also, we have also learned about communication on the website CoolHub. And on this website, it gives students and teachers the privilege to speak to one another. And it helps them to improve or maintain their business. Any questions for the group?
One more person. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Eric Stubner, and unfortunately, the rest of my group members were not able to come tonight, but I'm going to be talking about our project, which is Compare.com. Compare.com is a website that you go to compare two products that you are looking to purchase. The way it works is that the user goes to the website and simply types in two products that they want to compare. Set anywhere from automobiles to electronics and home appliances. And then our software scrapes the web for all of the information on the products that they have typed in. and then organizes and displays the information so that the user can make an easier decision. Like what it would say is, if you were talking about like an iPhone or like a Samsung Galaxy, it would say the screen size, the camera it has, and the web speed. And it would also show you the lowest price you can get it at and where you can get that price. And we continue to work on our algorithms so that we can provide users with the best web experiences. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you very much. You know, those are all first-rate presentations, and I have to say the presentations were just as good as the product ideas, and I would like to find some of those products. They're great ideas. Thank you very much.
That's the most nervous I've seen some of them. Miss Tabine and I get to see them usually in here in the cafeteria. That's usually a different look. So, but they have done a great job. Patrick has done a good job. We've partnered with IMSA on some of the problem-solving kinds of things. Certainly appreciate your support of the new electives, and I think, as you can tell, our kids have demonstrated that they are learning far and wide new concepts that they'll use, 21st century skills that are certainly necessary. Always makes me feel good to hear kids talk about how they have to get along to work together. So that's a good thing. So guys, thank you very much. You don't need to stay. Again, thanks to the board. Always great to see you guys here. All the work that you did to get this building done for all of us, and we're going to just keep that work going tonight. So thank you very much, and let's move on. Thanks.
Parents and students, you're welcome to stay through the meeting, but I understand if you have things to do and places to go, won't hold it against you if you wish to leave at this point. So thank you. It was great. And thank you to all the parents who support their students. Next, we come to modifications to the agenda. Are there any modifications that board members or staff wish to make? If not, we go to recognitions and achievements. And Dr. Harris, we have quite a prestigious achievement this evening to be recognized for.
We do. Thank you, Mrs. Swanson, board members. This evening we have a guest here this evening that's going to explain to us a very special award that our two high schools have achieved over this past year. But before I introduce that guest, I'm going to turn over to Faith Dahlquist, our Assistant Superintendent for Educational Services, and she's going to give a little preview to what AP looks like at both of our high schools. Faith?
Wanted to give you just a few little fun facts to help both the high schools brag a little bit. Over the last 5 years, the number of students taking exams has gone up 20% at one of our schools and 26% at the other. Also, in addition to that, the number of exams that are being taken has gone up by 30% at one of the schools and 37%. So not only are more students taking these classes, they're also taking more of them. Usually when this happens, that means that the percentage of students that are getting a 3 or the passing grade would go down. However, our district is unique because we continue to have 89% of the students get a 3 or better. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, the state average is 67%. So you might say, okay, well, how are you doing that? And just to allow the high schools to brag a little bit, one of the things that they did is in 2010, 2011, they made the Junior A English class actually the AP class, so that was all ready to go. Then there were several students that needed a little support before taking that class, so a summer bridge program was put together where a lot of support is given in advance so that our students are ready to do that. And that also has caused a huge increase. I also want to say that I think it's going to continue to grow because very recently we've just started using some of our Title I money to help with our students that do not have the money for the tuition for summer bridge so that they were able to take and have that opportunity free of cost. So we not only are making quite a bit of progress with that, but because of the great work at the high schools and the continued involvement, I think it will even continue.
Thank you, Faith, for that update. And before, as I introduce our guest for this evening, this is not by chance. And it's certainly a test to the leadership and the staff's work at both our schools and the kids' diligence to do the best that they possibly could do. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Jennifer McDonald from the College Board, who's here this evening to talk a little bit about this award that our District 200 is receiving. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the school board tonight. It's been well established that access to higher education is critical to our nation's economic future. If in this century we are going to achieve the great heights of prosperity that we saw in the last, every American must have the opportunity to attend and succeed in college. That is our goal. I'm pleased and proud to see that college readiness is obviously a high priority here in Community Unit School District 200, as evidenced by some of the presentations I just witnessed also, which has earned the distinction of being placed on the College Board's AP District Honor Roll. Nationally recognized as the highest standard of academic excellence, the AP program provides students with the opportunity to pursue college-level studies and earn college credit while still in high school. AP is accepted by more than 3,800 colleges and universities worldwide for college credit, advanced standing or both, on the basis of successful AP scores. But most importantly, taking AP courses demonstrates to college admission officers that students have attempted the most rigorous curriculum possible. This is an indication that they can handle a heavy workload in college. District 200 is among only 539 districts across the nation and Canada to be placed on the College Board's AP District Honor Roll. It's a very small number. This district has managed to increase the number of students who took an AP exam from 892 in 2011 to 976 in 2012, in 1 year, without lowering the percentage of students earning scores of 3 or higher on their AP exams. This is highly unusual. Last year in this district, these 976 students took 1,921 exams. And from these exams, 1,674 were scored at a 3 or higher. In most universities, 90% of universities, they will earn college credit for this. This will save these students and their families thousands of dollars in college tuition. We applaud District 200 for this outstanding achievement, as well as the students, teachers, and administrators, the parents, the grandparents, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles who made this possible. Together, you successfully use the Advanced Placement Program to prepare your students for the academic challenges of college and life. We hold this district up as a model to be emulated, for it's this type of commitment to college readiness which will ensure the future success of our young people, as well as the future success of our nation. Congratulations.
Before we move on real quickly, I just want to recognize Mr. Claypool and Ms. Bull, who are both here this evening, so thank you. Keep up the great work at both Wheaton Warrenville South and Wheaton North. We appreciate it. Thank you.
And we received a certificate, which I can pass around if you'd like to see it, and then it will end up in the district office, I think. Okay. Next, we come to public comments. And public comments, or are you done? Public comments are important to the board. However, it's the board's policy not to take action on items until time has been taken to gather information and discuss all options. Lack of action does not imply lack of interest in the issues. I will say tonight we have 24 people signed up by my count, and as far as I can tell, most all of them are signed up to speak about Jefferson, so in this case we will be taking action tonight, so you will be able to see the results of that vote if you stay around. We very much appreciate you taking the time to come out and share your thinking with us, whatever your thinking is. It helps us to clarify our own thinking and to strengthen our own thinking. And we understand that getting up to talk in front of people is difficult. It's a very hard thing. Even those of us who do it all the time, I have from time to time had my throat, tense up and my voice goes squeaky. So we understand that, and we do ask that for the sake of those who are going to speak, if somebody says something that you agree with or don't agree with, we ask that the audience refrain from expressing their feelings in terms of applauding or verbal signs of how they feel, because it just makes it that much harder for each person to get up and express their feelings, and we really want everybody to feel comfortable doing that. Also, we would ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Gambiani will be keeping time there. So because we have so many people signed up, if he breaks in when you're in the middle of a sentence, don't think him rude. He's just trying to make sure that everybody gets a fair share of time. So once again, we do appreciate you taking your time and the effort to come out and speak and listen tonight. So with that, I will just start going right down the line. Bill Babietz, and pardon me if I pronounce some names incorrectly. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Bill Babiars. My 3-year-old daughter Cameron is currently a student at Jefferson. It's been said by a potential candidate to this board that I am just a parent of a disabled child who doesn't want to be told no. There's definitely some truth to that. I don't think anyone would be in this room right now if we didn't want the best for our children, and that's why we're all here. But in this case, the simple truth is my daughter would never see the inside of a new Jefferson, as she will already have moved on to the next level school. So this is not purely a selfish motive for me to be here. Jefferson can be good for more than just the children and the families that attend the school. It can be good for the entire community. The board has also been told that we don't want to attract handicapped kids to our town by building a new facility for them. And that they can be a drain on our school system. 2 years ago, myself, my wife, and my apparently community-draining daughter moved here to Wheaton and bought a house, and we pay, upon a quick internet search, about 2 times the average property taxes of any of the average resident of Wheaton. We support local businesses, we go to local restaurants, we have a babysitter who's at Wheaton College, and when we pay her, she spends her money in the community. So my point being that you don't just attract a handicapped kid. The handicapped kids come from all types of families, and these families are exactly the people you want in your community, who support your community. Many of the children that go to Jefferson have minor speech and motor delays, and being able to treat a lot of these children at a very early age and getting their education started actually can save taxpayers down the road tremendously. Jefferson has an amazing staff of administrators, teachers, therapists, and aides, and with proper facilities, we can retain these very talented people and allow them to use their talents to get the most out of our children. According to Zillow.com, the average home in Wheaton is valued at $239,000, and estimates that I've seen would place a $25 increase per year on this average home. Let's humor everyone here and say that they badly underestimate this number, will double it to $50. If every single person received 1% of an increase in the value of their home, they would receive a 478% return on their property tax investment each year, not to mention the fact that they could advertise that their home is in a town that is on the leading edge of education. This meeting comes down to whether or not to place a question on the ballot 3 months from now. There are 53,000 residents in Wheaton, 13,000 residents in Warrenville, and some people in Winfield who are also in the district. Who does it hurt to ask the people most affected about the quality of education and the increase in costs about this, whether they're in favor of it, by putting it on a ballot? There are a lot of people in this room who are for and against the issue, and let them come out in April and decide for themselves whether they are. I appreciate you listening to my words, and if you'll just give me 30 more seconds, my daughter actually, who speaks with an assistive device, would like to say something very quickly, 30 seconds. Takes her a second sometimes just to find it.
I am not broken. I am beautiful. I am different. not less. I am challenged, not challenging. I am not a burden, I am a blessing. Its syndrome is not a choice, but acceptance is. Please vote yes to accept the referendum. Give me a chance to show you what I can do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did a great job. Your daughter did a great job there. Mary Ann Baton.
I am very familiar with Jefferson Preschool as I was a substitute there from 2002 to 2005. They have a wonderful staff there, and I saw much progress made for many of the students over time. The children's progress did not come from the physical building, but from the people in the building. I am very well aware of the physical and emotional challenges for the students, their parents, and staff at Jefferson. Those challenges were there 10 years ago when I would help out. The fact of the matter is that members Mr. Nicker, Ms. Intihar, Ms. Cockhill, Ms. Swanson, and Mr. Johnson all made the decision 6 or more years ago that the students at Hubbell had more pressing needs than the special needs students at Jefferson. It doesn't make sense given the narrative the board is putting out to the public today that shortening long bus routes took precedence over handicapped accessible bathrooms, ramps, wider doorways, etc., but it did. The fact is that these incumbent board members have put this district $200 million in debt. We pay $16 million a year for principal and interest on the debt they have incurred all of the years. That money would certainly pay for a new school. Actually, the money spent on Hubbell could have paid for 2 schools. Almost 80% of the budget goes to salaries and benefits. Illinois is broke and cannot pay its bills. The state, which by the way is taxpayer money, cannot be relied on much longer to give funds to our school districts as before. The threat of diverting pensions to the local level will continue to rear its ugly head as funds get cut off from the state to the district for things like transportation. That all falls on the shoulders of the district to pay. Basically, this board has put us in a very precarious situation financially. I was somewhat offended by Mr. Nicker's statement at the last school board meeting that maybe people who cannot afford the taxes here should move. Yes, senior citizens that have raised their families, they should just uproot themselves and leave their family and community. Because this board spent this district into debt. We have all lost 2 weeks' salary in the last 3 years to pay for the pensions. Not everyone receives the retirement income that Mrs. Nicker and many other retired administrators are collecting from this district. Over 6-figure retirement pensions with a 3% cost of living increase and medical benefits paid for the first 5 years of retirement. Maybe Ms. Swanson could appeal to the teachers' union to ask for their financial help in assisting the needs of the students. They rake in millions of taxpayer dollars every year. Maybe you could appeal to them and ask that instead of them giving millions of dollars to corrupt politicians to keep the Ponzi scheme they are running going on as long as possible, they could give that back to the students of the district. Everything comes down to finances, and a lot has changed in the past 6 years. And many people are in a much more precarious and uncertain financial situation than they were before, nationally and locally. People need to take care of their own families first. Whatever the needs the preschool has been lacking the last 6 years should have been addressed each year. Certainly there could have been some enhancements made to the building each year, over summer break. Maybe they could have put a few ramps in or remodeled a bathroom. The conditions would have certainly improved without further indebting this community. We are all willing to help, but we are tapped out and tired of being taken advantage of. No one should expect someone who pays their salary to indulge them with far more benefits at the expense of those working hard to pay their salary. But that is what the union leaders expect, and this board has certainly agreed to that by giving out these administrative contracts year after year. For the most part, people in this community are giving of their time and resources when the need arises. Had this board managed the money properly, they would not need to put everyone in this position where they pit people against others in the community. Had this board thought about the students first, we would not be having this discussion.
Thank you. Cindy Swanson. No relation.
I
am Cindy Swanson. I live at 519 North Webster in Naperville. I work for the ARC of Illinois. The ARC of Illinois, as well as the ARC USA, endorses legislation, policy, funding for quality opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. It's been noted that Jefferson has a wonderful staff. It's also been identified that Jefferson has a lot of physical issues that challenge the good opportunity to give students with disabilities the right basics that they need in order to pursue the life that they want once they leave your doors at 22 or the day before they turn 22. There is concern if we spend this money, it's going to attract people or whatever, but the bottom line is Illinois detracts people. Illinois, embarrassingly, is identified very, very low in the country. It's really a wealthy state. We don't really realize it, but it's a wealthy state, but yet we do worse than any other state in supporting people with disabilities in the community. We don't put money towards people with disabilities the way we should. An integrated model like Jefferson is exactly what the ARC supports. We endorse policies that support quality of life in the community, and that's what a good Jefferson program will be. This, the problems that were discussed earlier, that's in the past. I can't address that at all, but what I do know is this kind of thing is probably going to be some of the most efficient money you are going to spend because it's front-end loaded. And I'm going to talk specifically about students with disabilities. The better foundation we give them, the more opportunities we give them so that they can do things right, so they can find the restroom, so we can do that properly. It's going to make their life easier for grade school, high school, and then what's the final goal? Why do we go to school? We go to school so we can work. And our goal is so that these students can go to work. No matter how challenged they are, if we give them the right foundation, they are going to be contributors. I am part of an information and referral service for the Illinois Lifespan at the ARC of Illinois, and I get calls quite often from people who say, I live in another state, I'm being transferred to Illinois. I don't want to come to Illinois because Illinois has this incredibly bad reputation, and it does. David Braddock's most recent report shows Illinois is 50th in the country in how we do this. It's going to take communities one by one, Naperville, Plainfield, Oswego, Wheaton, to come up with creative means of providing what our students need from an early childhood position for that good foundation so that they can be contributors when they leave your good support. I'm going to give you one quick little personal story. I do this professionally, but I'm madly in love with a young man who has Down syndrome. I gave birth to him 25 years ago. Because he had the foundation like this, and we didn't have early childhood programs like we do now, but we bought community-based preschool for him. We paid money to a nice lady in the neighborhood. Because of that, today he's a 25-year-old man who goes to work 4 days a week, and he is a contributor. He is taking less from the government in benefits because he is working hard. And we all know that the better foundation we give our students when they're tiny, the better off we're going to be. And kids with disabilities, it just happens to be that if we learn right the first time, it's a lot easier than learning wrong and then having to relearn it. So we endorse this.
Can you wrap up, please?
Yep, we endorse you. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Sorry. Judith Zapp.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to ask the board to vote yes in favor of placing the Jefferson referendum on the April ballot. I have recent experience with Jefferson as my son was a student there from 2009 until 2012. He arrived at Jefferson at age 3 and already had had 7 surgeries in his short life and had had therapy 5 to 6 times a week from the time he was born. We received almost every support offered by Jefferson. Just a year and a half later, we became one of the many Jefferson success stories. In fact, we were counted among the entirely typical students who no longer required any educational supports. Today, he is a top-performing kindergartner. It's clear to me the enormous role Jefferson played in providing a rock-solid foundation for a lifetime of educational success. I've heard some say it's laughable that the school board would ask taxpayers to fund a new Jefferson. I strongly disagree. What would be laughable if it wasn't so sad and disappointing as this? Students at Jefferson in the 21st century have been known to ask if it's okay to flush because of the plumbing challenges the school faces. Staff members at Jefferson have to barricade water fountains because the only way students could possibly use them is by placing their mouths directly on the fixtures. All school family events can't even be held indoors at Jefferson without limiting the number of people each family can bring because the building simply cannot accommodate its community inside its doors. There are many, many more examples that clearly illustrate the need for a new Jefferson. I truly believe our community as a whole values the population whose needs are met in this extraordinary environment. To illustrate this, I'd like to ask at this time if you're here in support of a new Jefferson, if you could just please stand up. Don't say anything, don't clap, just stand up. So it's with that, and you can sit down. And so it's with that, I ask you to give us the opportunity to demonstrate that support by placing this measure on the ballot in April. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Aldama.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Alanya, and I'm speaking tonight as the mother of a special needs child and as a taxpayer. The emotional and financial costs of raising a child with special needs are staggering. The federal government has mandated that we educate our children in an appropriate setting, not warehouse them or sweep them under the rug, but educate them in appropriate settings so that they might reach their full potential. Jefferson Early Childhood Center is no longer an appropriate setting. A school with doorways too narrow to accommodate a wheelchair is not appropriate. Giving children one-on-one instruction in a janitor's closet is not appropriate under any definition of the word. The costs associated with Jefferson, building a new Jefferson are high. $17 million is a lot of money. However, the problem will not simply go away or fix itself. The government estimates that 1 in 54 children will be diagnosed with autism. That means that more and more children in our community will need the help of the wonderful teachers and staff of Jefferson. If we ignore the problem now, what will the cost be in 5 years? In 10 years? If you're lucky enough to own a home worth $300,000 in Wheaton, it is estimated that your property taxes will go up approximately $30 to $40 per year. I'm willing to bet that every person in this room can spend $30 or $40 at Target without even thinking about it. Let's put that money towards ensuring that all of our children get the best education possible. Let's tackle this now and set an example for the country that Wheaton-Warrenville District 200 cares about all of its students. Finally, I encourage all parents and taxpayers to vote in the upcoming school board election. It is so important that we carefully consider the opinions and qualifications of those in the running. We must have board members who are free of bias or prejudice and who will advocate for all students. Thank you.
Thank you. I will remind you not to applaud because you don't know what everybody's feelings are. We want everybody to be comfortable and respectful here, okay? Peggy Deal.
Hi, my name is Peggy Deal, and I'm here tonight to help support Jefferson Early Childhood Learning Center. To say that I'm strongly in favor of putting the issue of rebuilding Jefferson on the April 2014 ballot. A few weeks ago, I would never have thought to make an appearance here, or to feel the need to look all of you in the eye, and tell you that as a tax-paying citizen of Wheaton, it's of the utmost importance to me that Wheaton build a facility that meets and or exceeds the needs of the 3- and 4-year-olds who attend the school. I didn't think I'd have to do this because it's completely obvious when you look at the current building, and it's shocking to me that anyone here would disagree. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Helping kids when they're between the ages of 3 and 5 can make a significant difference in how much help is needed in their future. I've seen in the news and read about people, particularly Jan Shaw, who believe that our youngest learners are not a valued part of our community. I'm here to tell Jan Shaw that I will never support you and your biased, ignorant, personal agenda. I will not vote for you, but I will vote yes to rebuild Jefferson.
Thank you. Joe and Patty Burkett. Joe and Patty Burkett, are they here? Oh, sorry, didn't see.
Hi, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight.
I'm Patty Burkett, and I'm here tonight with my husband, Joe Burkett, who's in the audience. And as members of the community, Joe and I wholeheartedly support putting the Jefferson School referendum on the ballot. You know, one of the reasons we love living in Wheaton is because of the caring and giving people. The studies have proven that early childhood education and intervention leads to better outcomes for young children with special needs. Having up-to-date facilities is so important in achieving the maximum benefits for these children. Joe and I know firsthand the struggles of special needs children. We have them in our family. We have Fragile X nieces and nephews who, without early intervention, would not be in their 20s today, living at home, leading fairly productive lives. It's something that is just near and dear to our hearts. And we see the love of special education teachers. We have friends who do that as a living, and we hear and see how important the early intervention is. And it's equally important to have a safe environment. These children, you know, are fragile, and we have to look out for them and give them the earliest help to get them on into their later lives, as school-age children. Safe and nurturing environments, that's all we can do for our children. Joe and I studied the issues. We know that the school is at capacity, and we know the safety issues. And so, really, when we think about it, the cost is minimal compared to the return of investment on these fragile children. Basically, when it comes right down to it, it's just the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Gwen Henry.
My name is Gwen Henry. My husband Chet and I live at 905 West Elm Street in Wheaton, and we are 30-year-plus residents of Wheaton. All 4 of our children graduate from District 200 schools, and I currently serve as a DuPage County Treasurer and Tax Collector, a dirty word. Having served previously in several governmental service positions, including Mayor of Wheaton. I come tonight to ask the school board members to vote to put the Jefferson School referendum on the ballot in April. Chad and I are the grandparents of a special needs grandson. We've been pleased to see the services provided for him from the educational system in North Carolina. It has been good to see how the taxpayers of North Carolina, and Cary in particular, value him and respond to his needs. After 20-plus years, I think it's time for District 200 to renovate and renew the facilities used for our youngest and our most vulnerable learners. A very wise and caring and compassionate man once said, "Let the children come unto me." In another time he shared, "Whenever you fail to help any of my people, no matter how unimportant they seem, you fail to do it to me." Several years ago, we, Chad and I, worked to support the referendum for Hubbard. We had no children in the schools, but it was the right thing to do. Now is the time for Jefferson. I believe the Wheaton residents and the taxpayers of our district care about our children, especially the most vulnerable, and they will support this referendum. It's the right thing to do. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Patty Boheen.
Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Patty Boheen, and I'm the Executive Vice President at Little Friends Incorporated. I've been at Little Friends for the past 31 years, and I've run schools, early intervention programs, and I work with adults. I am here to support this early childhood building. I understand the financial perspective here, but special education is a mandated service. And if we don't provide an appropriate education for these children, they're going to need to be tuitioned out to Little Friends, and their community day schools cost about an average of $90,000 per year.
you're also going to be liable for lawsuits. If you build an appropriate center, the wonderful skill team at Eaton and Warrenville will be able to provide the services that are going to maximize the students' potential and, really importantly, their independence. There is no more crucial time than the ages of 0 to 3. This is when language and cognitive skills begin, and this is the time that they're going to be developed. If these children don't get this support, believe me, it will cost you a lot more later. As a therapeutic provider, I see these kids all the time. A high school student that needs 2 one-to-one assistants and a therapeutic school is unbelievably expensive. An adult who needs 24-hour one-to-one care costs about $120,000 a year, and that's not Wheaton Warrenville taxes, but it is state taxes that we all will pay. On the other hand, the right education can make our special education students valuable, productive members of our society. I've been working with people with developmental disabilities for 35 years, and their families and these individuals are some of the richest, most wonderful people that I know. The numbers are 1 in 88 of children that will be diagnosed with autism. It's 1 in 51 boys, and that's just autism. That's not developmental disabilities and physical disabilities. Most of us in this room will be touched by someone with a disability, whether it's your grandchild, your niece, your nephew, or maybe you have 2 children with autism. These children are going to come whether or not this facility is built or not. I want to tell you a little bit about Joey right before I leave. He's a little boy that was diagnosed and came to us right before he was 3 with severe autism. Nonverbal, his mother was beyond devastated. He started early childhood services at a wonderful program and started services with us. Now Joey, who used to not look at you or able to talk, bounds into my office and says, "Hi, Patty," and then walks skipping off and says, "See you later." I never would have thought that Joey would be able to do this. I just think that this is incredibly important. And I will tell you that building an early childhood program is the best thing to do for legal and financial reasons, but it is the right thing to do from a human perspective. And I truly appreciate the time to talk.
Thank you. Scott Mordell.
Good evening. My name is Scott Mordell. I'm a 10-year resident of the town of Wheaton, a 20-year resident of the town of DuPage, and I have very limited experience with people with special needs. Yes, I have very limited experience with people with special needs, and I'm here to talk to you and urge your support for the Jefferson proposal from a different perspective. In my day job, I'm the CEO of the Young Presidents Organization. It's a global network of more than 20,000 chief executives around the world, representing almost 10% by revenue of the world economy. And I will say that I was very heartened to see earlier potentially some future members in the entrepreneurial. It was very, very good. And I'm also, outside of my day job, committed to what's happening here in the county in my role as chairman of the DuPage Business Council. And the Business Council is a series of local businesses here who are committed to supporting and continuing the conservative fiscal principles, the opportunity and the activity that's happening here in DuPage in a continuing productive way. So for more than 100 years, there's been very enlightened leadership in our community, which is why it's growing, which is why people continue to move here, which is why I moved here from the city of Chicago, and why there's so much going on here. And strategic decisions have been made very effectively over time. We're sitting in one that was made very effectively over time. And we're at a point now where there's time to make a new one. In business, when we have a skill that is very, very specialized, that has to be done well, we consolidate it all in one place. And we do it very, very well, and then we work with that. And that's what somebody did a long, long time ago to create the Jefferson School in the first place. And in business, when our capability for that special skill is exceeded, we invest in a special skill because by definition, if it's special, it needs to be made as good as it can possibly be. And so we're here at this point now where we're not so poor that we can't continue to make strategic investments. We're not so distraught that we can't do the right thing with some compassion and caring for our community. And we heard from the younger students today how business is a group activity, how it's challenging to have to get along with everybody. And I want to put a face on business, if I may, with all of you, in the idea that we care about all of that. And we need to make it work as best we can because the whole of the community is really what makes it all work. So there's an old proverb as I travel around the world that people throw at me, it's totally misquoted, but when is the best time to plant a tree? And the answer is 20 years ago. And when is the second best time to plant a tree? And that answer is today. So with that, I urge you to consider this favorably. Thank you.
Thank you. Mindy Copeland? So Mindy.
It's me, but I can sign up.
Okay.
Sorry.
Neil Patel?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Neil. I am from Ray Graham Association. I'm the Family and Community Supports Administrator at Ray Graham Association. We provide services and support to nearly 2,000 children and adults with intellectual and developmental disability throughout the DuPage County with various different services in the region. Today, obviously, I'm here to support the new Early Childhood Center, the Jefferson Building. It is my hope that you as a leader of the school district agree with me that children with disabilities and their families deserve a safe, secure, and accessible learning environment which not only promotes the intellectual and academic gain, but also increases their social skills. At Ray Graham Association, we believe that there's a great return on the investment in early childhood education for children with and without disabilities. As you know, it is Part B of capital IDEA, which is the research that has been done, that outlines the necessity of the early childhood education for children with disabilities. Based upon those facts that I currently have, and I do have it with me, and I can definitely share with any members here that are willing to do that and need to have those facts, that there are major barriers of accessibility in the old school building and less than conducive space for the required individual therapies, which obviously are the basic need for the children who are attending the Jefferson School. The data of the early childhood education is very clear. The Early Childhood Outcome Center reports that nearly 80% of preschool children with disabilities show greater than expected growth in 3 required reporting areas. Those are social relationships, use of knowledge and skills, and taking action. When children with disabilities get off to a good start, they become better learners and have better relationship building skills. Then as an adult, when they grow, they become productive members of our society by working, volunteering, and living as independent as possible. I think District 200 should embrace the opportunity to take the step to enhance this Jefferson School building. Again, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Lynn Cadell.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Harris. My name is Lynn Cadell. I am a taxpayer and I currently have 1 child at Washington Elementary. I want to start off by saying I am a little disappointed. I'm disappointed that the funds for rebuilding Jefferson were not already built into the budget. The age and the state of the Jefferson building is not a surprise. This didn't come out of nowhere. I believe this is not the first year the district's talked about demolishing Jefferson. And this is now the first year that some of our special needs students are being sent to a separate school because every seat at Jefferson is filled. That being said, I am very, very much in favor of you voting yes to this referendum on the April ballot. The Jefferson facility is metaphorically broken. It's broken now. I don't really know what happened with the Hubble thing that everybody's talking about. I didn't have kids then, I didn't pay attention. But this is broken now. This needs to be addressed now. So let's put it on the referendum and let the taxpayers decide. You've heard all the studies, or you've heard other people talk about the studies that show that the more money spent on early intervention during these early childhood years, 3 to 5, means less money spent down the road during the lifetime of that child in terms of additional services. I can tell you that my family is one of those. My son entered Jefferson at 3 years old, and I 4.5, he was kicked out of the special needs program and became a tuition paying student. This is in part, well, this is wholly in part to the staff at Jefferson. We are no longer, what were we called? We are no longer a drain on our school system. So we're pleased about what Jefferson has done to our family. It's given us a higher quality of life. I don't think anyone here is disputing that special needs education is required. But again, I don't understand why we are not looking forward, or we're not addressing this problem right now when it needs to be addressed. I am very proud of our community. I am extraordinarily proud of our exceptional schools. I do need to object to the statement made at the December Board of Education meeting along the lines of, if we can't afford to live here, maybe we should move. That's a horribly elitist statement. And that's not a value we even teach and instill at our schools. That is not a value we teach at home. And I would ask that we rethink those types of statements. It is undemocratic. As for Jefferson, it's broken now. Please vote yes. Let the community decide. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Nancy Miner.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Miner. I'm with Western DuPage Special Recreation Association. I'm the Superintendent of Recreation here. I'm also a District 200 taxpayer and have been in the community for over 20 years. As you all know, we have exceptional schools, and it's time to fix Jefferson Preschool. I'm here tonight in support of a new Jefferson Preschool. As research shows, the importance of education and intervention during these years is critical. Please vote yes for Jefferson School. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Wagner.
Good evening, everybody. My wife Lisa and I are the co-chairs of the Friends of Schools, and we invite all of you to become members for this wonderful organization. We're overwhelmed by the outpouring of support for Jefferson and for what we're about to do tonight through your good works. Obviously, the Baby Yards Child is one of the exact reasons why we're here. The overwhelming support is amazing. Special thanks to Joe and Penny Burkett, Gwen Henry, Rich Jorgensen, our DuPage County Coroner, all of our elected leaders who support this wonderful program. As you probably have seen through some of the information we put out, the Edsel was built in 1958, and so was Jefferson. You don't see a lot of Edsels driving around Wheaton and Warrenville anymore. My wife and I have Irish quadruplets. We have triplets that are 11 and a 10-year-old. Our son was diagnosed with autism at 15 months, and he turned 3. He was at Jefferson because that's what the state mandates has to happen. Thank God that law was passed by Lee Daniels. When John started at Jefferson, he couldn't do many things. After he left, because of the incredible staff, and I want to repeat, because of the incredible staff, he did really well. And he's mainstreamed at Madison Elementary School. But the facility was not good 8 years ago, and the facility is way beyond being good now. We have a world-class staff who deserve world-class facilities. We have to provide that facility that meets the needs of our special kids. And this job has to get done. So, for about a cup of coffee a month, $2.50 a month for the average homeowner, this would cover the cost for Wheaton and Warrenville. Now the big question is, will Springfield turn over the teacher pension bills to our district? What may or may not happen in Springfield is not in our control. I spoke to Senator John Milner, who supports this referendum. John Milner, last night, wanted me to tell you, because he's in Springfield, that you can't wait and wring your hands and see what's going to happen in Springfield, because over the weekend, the Speaker and the Governor came together and said, we're going to take this off the table. We're not going to put the money back towards the suburban and downstate schools. That was off the table. Nothing passed, nothing happened, and now it goes into the next General Assembly. We don't know what's going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen with negotiations in Springfield? There's a lot to be done. What we know is that this facility doesn't work. And John Miller said, it's a no-brainer to replace Jefferson. So, ladies and gentlemen, the time is now. For $2.50 a month, a cup of coffee, please vote to put this initiative on the ballot for the citizens of Wheaton and Warrenville to show everyone on April 9th that we are an education community that wants all of its learners to have high-quality facilities. That is what we expect. It's only $2.50 a month. Thank you.
Emily Larson.
Good evening. Emily Larson, 3 South, 537 Elizabeth in Warrenville. In 1955, my in-laws, mom and dad, moved out to Warrenville and enjoyed a half an acre of land and a garden and the birds and the bees. And then when Dad died in '67, Mom said, why don't you come out to Warrenville and have the yard for the kids, and it's really nice out there. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's the end of the world. I didn't drive. Warrenville was 2,000 people. But my husband, we loved it when we came out every weekend to visit my in-laws and grandma and grandpa. So we moved out. And my children, 4 children, went through the system and had wonderful education. Did not need special needs. We were blessed with healthy children. I did have a teenager who bumped heads with Mr. Hetherington probably every day that she was in high school, but we survived that. I've come full circle now, and when my in-laws were here, my mother-in-law was so pleased to be able to pay her taxes into a school system that now her grandchildren were enjoying. So my 4 children, and then I had 4 grandchildren go through the system. I have a granddaughter who teaches autistic children in Rockford. She's gotten her master's in that. They have wonderful education. So I support this referendum because it is important. It will be good for our property values. It's good for the education of every child that moves into District 200. So I will work and help you support this referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Tischetz. Did I get anywhere close to that? No.
Cindy Cheddar. Hi, my name is Cindy Cheddar, and I am a proud mother of 2 Jefferson success stories. A year and a half ago, my family was given very short notice that we would be relocating from New York to DuPage County. I did a lot of homework in those few weeks to find a community that would best fit the needs of my 3 growing boys, all of whom have special needs. Since deciding on District 200, I have been nothing but pleased with how my family has been treated, how our needs have been met. I have been blown away by the staff and the services. Now that we are settled, I have become very involved in our boys' schools and joined many of the district's committees. I have been impressed by everything you guys have to offer, until you consider Jefferson. This building does the district a disservice. It makes it impossible to provide these children with an appropriate education. As adults, we would not tolerate working out of closets or having inadequate bathrooms or rooms entirely inaccessible to us. We would fight for something better. Why should our children not have that equal opportunity? As individual households, the amount of money this facility will be costing us might mean giving up 1 fast food meal a year. But aren't our kids worth that?
Thank you. Jan Shaw.
Hello there. I am Jan Shaw, and yes, I am the person that many of you people have mentioned. I am a school board candidate. Last month when I spoke before this board, sorry about that. Last month when I spoke to the board, I did speak against building a new, larger Jefferson preschool. I was concerned. Yes, it is all about the money. I have nothing against these children. we all want the best for all of our children. It really is about the money. It's also about homeowners being able to afford the home in which they live. If you decide to put Jefferson referendum on the ballot, please make sure that the taxpayers understand the complete cost of Jefferson. Not just the cost of the building, not just what their taxes are going up that first year. We want to know what is the total cost of bond financing. We also need to make sure we understand the total cost of staffing the new building. When you predict a larger number of students there, I assume you're going to predict the same amount of growth in staff needs. If you do not increase the amount of staff, then you will be stretching the existing staff far further, especially the special needs, speech pathologists, therapists, etc. You'll be stretching those staff numbers far further, and that would mean less services for all of the existing kids. So at a school such as this, that's a critical component of the referendum. The only thing I have against this referendum, to be quite honest, is the school's current financial situation. In 2010, Moody's downgraded the credit rating. Back when we were talking about the referendum for Hubble, you said that the existing old Hubble facility would sell for $20 to $30 million. In 2010, the board put it up for sale with a minimum asking price of $10 million. Just recently, Hubble sold for $5 million, and part of that's going to be sold back to the Park District for $5 million after it's been refurbished. We spent a fortune building this new building here called Hubble, and it's a gorgeous new facility. But in order to sell the referendum to us back then, you made a minimum payment in the first year. We talked about, let me skip that part. The bubble, prior to doing Hubble, the bond ratings for existing bonds, that tax rate for half the bonds, was set to start going down in 2011 and was supposed to drop off. The way you financed Hubble was with a minimum payment that first year, so the bond went up just a tiny bit that first year. But it continues to stay flat. The rate was to stay flat. However, when you read the fine print underneath it, it said that assumed that the assessed value for the whole district would go up by 5% a year, and that the average home value would go up by 4% a year. Well, what's actually happened? Taxes have gone up. Most of our home values have gone down. The tax rate has gone way up, I think, by about 20%. As a result of this, Hubble, and the fact that you backloaded all those bonds, we have this bond debt that's about ready to pop. Last month, I saw something about the bond debt, or the amount of money we spend toward bond debt is about to double in the next 11 years. In fact, at the last board meeting, the board talked about the fact that you're going to need to refinance some of those existing bonds because the bond debt is going to get so big that we're going to have troubles paying it with our existing revenue streams. Therefore, why on earth do you want to put on more debt? I personally see the fact that Jefferson is an adequate school, not ideal. It definitely could use some renovation. Back in 2007, the same architects estimated.
Can you wrap up, please?
Okay, they estimated that it would cost about $7.4 million to renovate or $13.5 million to build. And so my question to you now is, why do we need a significantly bigger New Jefferson, and why do we need to spend so much money on it? When I know we can do it for less. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Georgiou.
Good evening. Members of the board, I urge you to vote yes to add that referendum for Jefferson Preschool on the April 2013 ballot. Please do not take away the opportunity for a new Jefferson Preschool by voting no tonight. You need to let the voters of District 200 decide for themselves if they want to fund a new preschool. To the voters of District 200, I implore you to vote yes to the referendum on the April ballot. Have you taken the time to visit Jefferson? Well, if you've not visited Jefferson, it is in desperate shape. I have 4 children, 2 of which attended Jefferson. It has been 7 years since my youngest child attended, and I can say without a doubt that the school needed improvements back then. Have you taken the time to meet the students and faculty? My 10-year-old daughter attended Jefferson as a tuition-based student. My 12-year-old son attended Jefferson as a need-based student. The staff at Jefferson evaluated him when he turned 3 in September 2003. He began attending Jefferson that December. My son was barely speaking and made minimal eye contact. By the time he finished that school year, only half of the regular school year, he had made significant improvements with his speech and language. By December 2004, he was ready to transition from an instructional classroom to a blended classroom. Because of the dedication of the faculty at Jefferson Preschool, if you were to meet my son today, you would not know he has struggled with speech and language issues. Early intervention is key. Have you ever wondered what happens to your tax dollars, how they are spent? I often wonder what exactly the federal government is doing with the thousands of dollars they collect from my family. I've read articles that some of our tax dollars are spent on building schools in foreign countries. While that endeavor may be worthwhile, doesn't it make more sense to invest your tax dollars in your future? The children of today are the leaders of tomorrow. This includes all children, needs-based or not. In addition, just because a child begins his journey as a needs-based student does not mean they will not succeed or that they will not overcome whatever they need to begin life with. You never know, my son could wind up running the country, but probably would never have had the chance without the assistance of the services provided by Jefferson. If you vote yes for the Jefferson referendum, you will know exactly where a portion of your tax dollars are being spent, who exactly is helping, and you will know the good it is doing. Lastly, I heard someone say, don't build a new school. It will only encourage more families with needs-based children to attend school within District 200, and then we'll have to pay to continue to educate them. I have to ask, what about the needs-based children who already reside within the district boundaries? Are they not worthy of a school which will encourage independence and foster growth? Let us not forget that the government dictates that each district provides services to children with special needs starting on their 3rd birthday. We aren't asking to build a new school to house a new program. We are asking that this school district and the residents of this school district simply abide by government regulations, such as the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires all public spaces to be wheelchair accessible. At the current time, not all of Jefferson Preschool is wheelchair accessible. This situation needs to be addressed before parents of these need-based children decide to bring a lawsuit against our district for not abiding by the laws mandated by our government through the ADA. Sometimes you need to spend a little money to save some in the future. Vote yes today and in April. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Sareki-Hosek.
Good evening, Board. My name is Kristen Zaretti-Hosek. I'm a Wheaton resident and a taxpayer in District 200. I have 3 children, 2 of whom went to Jefferson already, and 1 who is currently enrolled in their tuition-based program. This is my 4th consecutive year as a Jefferson parent. I had 1 child on an IEP, which is an individual education plan, and my other 2, I paid tuition for them to attend. I'm here to represent both of these kiddos, those with the special needs and those that are neurotypical. I think this is an important topic to discuss this evening because there seems to be a misconception about Jefferson and that it only serves the children with special needs. The fact is that Jefferson has a population of 289 students. A third of them are neurotypical and 2/3 have some type of special need or disability. My firstborn son started at Jefferson on an IEP. He was in a self-contained classroom, but with the help of the wonderful staff and the different therapies he received, he eventually graduated to an inclusion classroom. He is now at Sandburg in 1st grade, no longer on an IEP, and a thriving neurotypical young man. We love Jefferson Early Education Center so much, we enrolled our next 2 children there in the tuition-based program, but it wasn't easy. I had to wait in line at 7 a.m. last year before the doors even opened, and froze my tootsies off to ensure my child was enrolled at the school. And why do I mention this, you ask? Because it's relevant to the topic tonight. We need the space for many others to enroll at Jefferson, both the special needs kids and the tuition pay together. And while I don't want to dwell on this topic, I do want to address the recent comments that were made to the media by one of the candidates running for school board, Ms. Shaw. After first hearing your comments, I was angry and I wanted to say shame on you. Shame on you for not doing your homework and not knowing all you could about Jefferson Early Childhood Center and for spreading such ignorance. But after much thought this past week, I kind of want to say thank you. because your ignorance has been the light for many of us to start this topic, this important topic, and for many of us to be here tonight. I look forward to seeing and hearing from all the 9 candidates at the forum on February 26th at Wheaton North. They say it takes a village to raise a child. I'm a taxpayer in this village. I'm not thrilled about my taxes going up, but can anyone say they really want higher taxes? I'm also a mother in this village and a caring citizen to all students of all abilities. The building that sits at 130 North Hazelton in Wheaton is not up to par. We need to create a new building now. These children need us. They're our future. And I'm here tonight to ask the board to vote yes to bring this to the referendum in April, and to ask every audience member to do their homework and pass it along. Review the numbers. From what I understand, my taxes may only go up by around $50 a year, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my hard-earned money going towards education. When this goes to vote, I will be voting yes for a new Jefferson Jefferson Education Center. And when this referendum does pass, and the new building goes up, I hope every one of you, those who voted yes and those who voted no, look at your tax bill and pat yourself on the back. And know that every dime of that money is going towards a good cause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Scott DuBose.
Thank you for getting my name right.
It's almost the only one this evening. So.
Very few people get it correct. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, distinguished guests, educators, this debate has been exceedingly educational for me. This is my first meeting that I've attended at the school board. I've got 2 children who attend schools in this district. One who goes to Wheaton North, one who goes to Jefferson. So you can pretty much tell how I feel. To not put this on the ballot would be kind of a bad thing to do to the citizens of this district. I think it's important that we are allowed to make this decision, put this forward, and allow our children to get a better education. I've got a child at Jefferson, and in fact, it was my child who was on Fox News learning in a closet. All right? And I've got to tell you, it's a shame. It truly is. Jefferson is falling apart. And yes, we have problems. It's been extremely enlightening listening to all of the individuals here speaking this evening. I think I'm going to pay a lot more attention to what goes on in this board in our school district, because we obviously have problems. But together we can fix these problems. And together, I say, this community will benefit very, very much from getting Jefferson a new school. My wife is a native of Wheaton. I'm not. I moved here because when you get married, sometimes your wife says, hey, guess where you're living? I moved here, and she grew up here. She said this was a great community, great schools. And so far, watching my wife's son go to the schools here, I was very impressed. Wheaton North is a very good school. This is an amazing school. But when I look at Jefferson, I'm not impressed, not even a little. All right, I was raised on the south side of Chicago, and believe me, I know what an educational system looks like when it's not really working well. All right, and my father was raised in Mississippi. I spent a lot of my childhood going between Chicago and Mississippi. And when I hear board members or people who want to run for board saying that they're not being welcoming to families with children with special needs, I've seen that firsthand. And I'm not, if you try to insult me, mission accomplished. I got a child here who needs this. I got to tell you, the educators here at Jefferson are doing a tremendous job, but give them the tools to do better. They deserve it. They worked for it. They bust their butts to give our kids a better education. And those special needs children, they deserve it too.
Thank you. Elizabeth Priebus.
I actually signed up, but he's going to be talking.
Hi, we are Mike and Elizabeth Prebuz. We live in the district. We live in Winfield. We have a 3, almost 4-year-old son who's at Jefferson right now. And as a lot of people here do, our son has special needs. Our son has very special needs, severe disabilities, and I don't want to waste your time by telling you, but I think it needs to be said again how great the people at Jefferson are. And I don't know if anybody knows that as much as we know that. It's only fair to them and to those children that they would receive a new building. And we're not even talking about our son. He won't be there when that building is complete. It has almost nothing to do with us. It has to do with the kids that are going to live in this district. And that's what we're concerned about. We live in Winfield. We moved here for the school system. Then we had our son, and things changed. And we are now facing the reality that we can't live in the house we live in because it doesn't suit his needs, so we have to move. And we were kind of keeping that quiet, but I ruined it. And we are looking nowhere but District 200. We can't afford District 200 probably to get the kind of house we need. That doesn't matter. We're going to do it because we're not going anywhere else. And for people to say that it would be a burden on this district to bring in special needs kids, that's an insulting thing to say or to hear as special needs parents. So if Jan Shaw is here talking about money, and most of the rest of us talking about kids, and if you can give us a facility that will help our kid, you can have every penny we have. And I think a lot of people in this room feel the same way. Thank you.
Now, I have Scott Mordell on the list again. Is that the same Scott Mordell? Okay. You never know. Ryan Corbett. Is there Ryan here? Tom Shaughnessy.
Tom Shaughnessy, many of you already know who I am. I back up to Jefferson School. I want to ask a question before I make any other comments. Once you start a referendum, when is the end date? There's a beginning, there has to be an end date. When do we stop paying that tax?
Mr. Shaughnessy, this is not the time for question and answer.
That's not what your thing says. It says that it's to come up here and make comments and ask questions. That's what it said. I'm asking a question.
It will get explained in the presentation. So, Dr. Harris, once we're done with this, when we get to the Jefferson item, he's going to review everything and you'll see how many years.
I want you to know, I'm not a heartless individual. My wife is a learning disabilities teacher in Naperville. I'm on the committee for the Ride for Autism. We raised $86,000 this past year for it. So I'm not a heartless person, but I can't understand why you can't downsize your project. I walk by that school every day and every night when I walk my dog. I don't know why you can't take the playground that's to the back, to the south of the school, move it to the west side of the school, and extend your building out to the end of that property. I don't know why you can't downsize this. Why do you need $17.6 million for a school? I'd like some answers, and I think I'm entitled to them as a taxpayer.
Thank you. Blake Janesis. Oh, Janesis, sorry.
Good evening, board and administrators. My name is Blake Chances. I'm the band director here at Hopewell Middle School. This is my daughter, Allie. I'll overwhelm you with some cuteness. 21 months ago, our life changed. And she doesn't, we didn't know this, but she's got a syndrome. And I bought a house in this district because I wanted my daughter to go to Hopewell. and now she's going to go to Jefferson because of her syndrome, and we're very grateful for that. I guess the only point I want to make to anybody out there is this could happen to anybody, black or white, Hispanic, rich or poor, Democrat, Republican. Nobody wants to go through this. This has been the hardest thing in my life and my wife's life. And so please support putting this on the referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. And the cuteness factor worked. Ron Jish.
Hi, I'm Ron Ziss. We've been residents of Wheaton for 19 years, put 3 sons through the schools here, and are very pleased with the education that they've received. My wife worked at Jefferson, and she currently works at a school for autistic kids. My comment, however, is I'm very much opposed to this referendum for one of the reasons that was raised earlier. We're absolutely in favor of the kids, and the kids should get the type of support that they need. We have a son who's on the autism spectrum, so we're very clearly sensitive to the needs of these students. The issue that I have is, like a lot of things, there seems to be no regard given to the debt that we're racking up in the town and the amount of money we spend on these. There's no thought given to what's an appropriate expenditure for this type of thing. It very much harkens back to when we did the referendum on the high school the first times around, and this board just continually loads up the Cadillac of everything. And you'll recall that that referendum got defeated, and then when we right-sized it, we all stepped forward and supported that because we believe in our schools and we're very proud of our high schools. This idea has the same type of overinflated, relates to the comment the gentleman just made. Why does it need to be $17.6 million? And in light of all of the debt that we keep racking up, in light of the very generous teacher salaries and pensions that we provide, in light of the threat of the pension situation in Illinois, there are some significant issues that we face. And we can just keep pushing this forward, just like the United States does, racking up more and more debt. But there'll be a time when we're going to have to reckon with that. So, completely in favor of the kids, but the comment that I haven't heard, and my biggest concern is, I feel like we just keep spending and spending without regard to what we can realistically afford. And that's my concern. So I'm very much opposed to this referendum.
Thank you. Teresa Hink.
Good evening, I'm Teresa Hink. I don't know what more there really is to say. There's been amazing comments from the community, and I think it really resounds that it needs to be an issue that's placed on the ballot. I do want to address just a little bit the taxes. We have citizens concerned about the cost, and that is valid. Dan Wagner told us that it would cost us a cup of coffee a month. Cindy was willing to give up a restaurant meal for a year, 1 year. I think it's important to remember that even though we don't have the money in some sort of fund, that Jefferson has saved us millions over the years. The staff has done a great job educating 3 to 5-year-olds in a less than ideal building for almost 20 years. And it's time that Jefferson is paid back for that. They've also saved our taxpayers millions of dollars because we have heard how educating the 3 to 5-year-olds really does save us in education in the long run. Julie Georgette asked us to look to the future with our tax dollars. And I do want to say that it does sound like a lot for a building, and I think there are questions to be answered. But I do know that the district applied for a construction grant through the state of Illinois, but at the public facility, only public facility that was granted it was Keeneyville. I also do know that District 200 visited all the neighboring early childhood centers. Yes, there are several early childhood centers that have been built since the late 90s to serve this exact same need. In looking at those centers, they asked, what would you have done differently? That is definitely something that we want to make sure that we address. We can always say that we've spent too much money, but often we can spend too little money and then be asked later, why did we make those mistakes? And why do we have to now revise them? So I urge you to put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the people who are signed up to speak. And I want to thank you once again for taking the time to come out here and for your comments. It's been very helpful for us, and we appreciate that very much. Now we go to Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mrs. Swanson. Good evening, board members. A couple of items this evening I wanted to update the board on and also the community. First of all, since our last meeting, we are all aware of the tragic situation that occurred in Newtown, Connecticut. And I would be short-sighted this evening not to be able to comment about how that has had an impact on our community in District 200. Anytime something traumatic like that happens in any school, anywhere in the country, it all makes us sit and reflect about our current processes, our procedures, our safety protocols at all of our schools. And I can assure you, I do feel very confident that we do have excellent procedures and protocols in place. Our kids are trained, our staff is well prepared for any type of emergency situation. I remember back in 1999, I was a principal at the time in the middle school, and when Columbine happened. And it was a watershed moment when it came to school safety, no doubt about it. There were significant changes, and this District 2 met those challenges and changes over a period of time. And I can assure you over the next few months, staff as well as our community safety officials working with our police departments and fire departments, we are going to be taking a look at all of our procedures and safety and protocols to make sure that we are up to speed. Anytime a significant event happens like this, it always brings that awareness to all schools everywhere to make sure we look at what we're doing and why we do it. And we are going to be doing that. So that is a preview of something that may be coming down the road in the near future. Actually, tomorrow morning, we do have weekly meetings with our community safety officials, meeting with the police departments in all of our communities. And that is on the agenda tomorrow morning, as you can imagine, so it probably will be for the next several months. So we will be bringing back some follow-up to that at some point. Not sure when, but we want to take a very strategic approach to that as we move forward. So, the second item I wanted to update the board on, and there was some discussion here during citizens' comments, was funding, revenues. That is always a challenge for us in the public body to monitor our revenues, and specifically, since the last time we were together, the federal government as well as the state government continues to have significant conversation about funding as it comes back to the school district. Two very important topics that we currently are in the process of putting together for as we prepare for our budget for the upcoming fiscal year, 13-14. Mr. Farley and I have been working on our initial projections on trying to estimate our revenues the best we can, given the information that we have, and also taking a look at our expenditures to make sure that we continue to be fiscally appropriate, not only in this year, but in many years to come. As the board knows, we have put together 5-year projections for many years, and we certainly use that planning document to make sure that we meet our obligations and estimate our revenues appropriately and meet our expenditure obligations as well. Two things that we're paying attention to. One of them is the pension scenario. That issue has not been resolved, as many of you probably are aware. They were working hard to try to come to a resolution to that in Springfield. It did not happen. I did get notification today that the first item on the agenda in the Senate with the new group was pension bill number 1. And I do know the conversation is going to continue. In our preliminary looking at in our budget planning, we will have much more updated information coming up on January 23rd at the Committee of the Whole meeting. Mr. Farley and I will present where we see ourselves in this coming year and for the next 4 years after that. We do believe that we would be able to handle any additional pension obligation in our operating funds. That is a preliminary, and I caution that preliminary look at it. We certainly will continue to monitor those items coming out of Springfield to determine how we are moving forward. I do believe we are in a good fiscal situation, and it's really twofold. One of them is we have an excellent teacher contract that has prepared us for the next couple of years, and it's related to the Consumer Price Index. And so therefore, we are prepared to meet our obligations in that way. Second thing is we do have a lot of retirements coming down the road real quick. And certainly that will be a cost factor that will be positive in the expenditure side. So it is something we'll have more detail on coming up on the 23rd. Those of you that are concerned about our budget scenarios, I encourage you to come on the 23rd and listen to where we're at in our projections and how we are planning to move forward. The other issue at the federal government is our health care, our employee health care issues with the Obamacare. Mr. Farley and I have been meeting with our health care providers and for employee health care, and we are working to make sure that our district is in line with the new federal regulations. It is a pretty significant issue that we are going to have to address in the upcoming budgets, and it is something we are working to prepare for in our projections. We have nearly 1,800 employees in the district, so it is a pretty significant issue for us, and we need to make sure that we are prepared not only in the short term but in the long term for that. So that's just a preview to the upcoming agenda item at the 23rd board meeting, but I know it's relevant somewhat to what we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes, and so I wanted to at least provide that additional information at this point. Also, I would like to make one introduction. Michelle Rollins. Michelle, where are you? All right, Michelle Rollins will be our interim public relations person for the next 2 months. Erica, are you still here? Oh, she is. Erica Loyakano, I wasn't sure, is going to have baby tomorrow, we hope, correct? So yes. So her last day of work is today. For at least the next 2 months. So those of you who received the communications from Erica, they will now be coming from Michelle, at least for the next 2 months. She will be our interim public relations person for District 200. So welcome, Michelle, officially. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much.
Brian, can we tell Erica to go home? She's making you nervous.
Well, that's why I was wondering if she was still here. She's still here. Okay.
What a trooper. Thank you very much. We have 12 items on the consent agenda. Acceptance of a gift to Johnson School, approval of revised policy 7.70, attendance truancy, approval of revised policy 7.270, administering medicine to students, approval of policy 4.15, identity protection, approval of math curriculum, approval to post K-5 mathematics textbooks, adoption of resolution to begin the 2013-2014 budget cycle, approval of an interfund loan to education fund from working cash fund, approval of an interfund loan to transportation fund from working cash fund, approval of bills payable and payroll, approval of minutes November 28, 2012 special meeting, December 12, 2012 open and closed, and approval to destroy recordings of closed sessions prior to August 2011 as allowable by law, and approval of personnel report to include employment, resignation, retirement, and leave of absence of administrative, certified, classified, and non-union staff. Are there any items that board members wish to remove from the consent agenda? If not, I will take a motion to accept the approve the consent agenda as presented. Moved by Andy, seconded by Barb. Oh, sorry. Well, now I'm going to talk with myself. Are there any questions or comments about consent agenda items?
Just one comment. I note the acceptance of a gift to Johnson School for their guided reading library. I had the opportunity to visit Principal Derek Edwards and Johnson in early December, and he proudly took me on a tour of the guided reading library there. So I am very grateful as a board member for this anonymous gift to that guided reading library. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful gift.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? If not, I would call for the vote, and remember to vote online.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah.
Mrs.
Spar?
Yes.
Mr. Knicker?
Yes.
Mr. Vroman?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes, the consent agenda is approved. And now we move to our action items, which we have two. And the first is what we've been talking about all of tonight so far, the adoption of resolution authorizing a building bond referendum for a new Jefferson Early Childhood Center. Before we take action on this item, I'd like to ask Dr. Harris to review where we've been and kind of just an overall review of the project and what this resolution would entail.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Swanson. Thank you, Mrs. Swanson and board members. I want to draw the board's attention to the presentation over here, and I'm going to be brief, but also very critically summarizing the work that has been going on at the board level as well as the staff level over the last several months. Back in July 18, 2012, the Board of Education adopted its annual goals. And one of those goals was to take a look at some of our facilities in the district that needed attention, and specifically 3 facilities that had not received any significant renovation or attention over the last 15 to 20 years, like many of our schools have. Those facilities included Jefferson, the School Service Center, and also Woodland, which currently serves as our maintenance and facility. It's a former school that's in Warrenville. And the staff and the board continue to work on that and to take a look at each of those facilities to see what were the possibilities, because they have not been included in any type of renovation or work over the many years. The board formed 2 different committees. One of them was the Jefferson Core Team, which was comprised of board members, staff members, and also our architects. And we spent numerous amounts of hours looking at different scenarios, reviewing the work that was done on the site visits to the many schools that we visited throughout the suburban area in Chicago, looking at early childhood centers that other districts have recently updated for their communities. And the Jefferson Core Team worked hard to come up with some different plans that we brought forward to the board that we had discussions on for the last 2 board meetings. Also the Finance Committee. It was determined by the board early on that we were going to have to use bond money to do any type of work on these facilities. We are not in the fiscal position. We do not have a savings account for large capital projects. We are doing very well in our operational funds, in our education fund, our operation and maintenance fund, transportation funds, but we do not have a piggy bank full of money to do a large capital project. So therefore, the Finance Committee spent a significant amount of time looking at our existing debt and looking at how we might be able to fund a project and what the scope of it would look like. So I want to summarize the work of those 2 committees as we move forward. And again, the board goal that was decided at that time was a unanimous decision by the board to take a look at these projects and work towards solutions, so hence why we are here this evening. Another big part of the board's commitment to this was to get community engagement and feedback on these projects. And there were 2 significant pieces of the ways to get that feedback. One was to have community forums at Jefferson Early Childhood Center. We had 4 different sessions, approximately 80 to 100 people attended those sessions. We also had legislative meetings there this fall with all of our local and our state and federal legislators to not only share our thoughts and our planning and get their input as well. And we received quite a bit of feedback from those sessions, and it was very helpful. We had some initial concepts that we had pushed out there, and the concept that we're looking to move on this evening is not the concept that was pushed out originally at that time, back in August. We also, the board, committed to developing a community survey, which was sent out by paper as well as electronically to all district residents, and to get feedback on not only this particular project with the Jefferson Early Childhood Center, but also on all of our future facility enhancements and facility needs as we move forward. We also put in there several questions to help guide our thinking as we move forward educationally in District 200. So what did we learn from those sessions and that survey that went out to the community? 3 key points here. One, that the quality of education was rated excellent or good by our community. That was a consistent theme, and it was extremely high. Number 2, the quality of the student experience. excellent or good. It was 90% coming back on the written survey that people were very satisfied with the student experience. And finally, it was a very clear message, especially on the written survey, to focus only on Jefferson in this particular project. The board and staff began to focus only on Early Childhood Center on Hazelton Avenue. And we dropped the other projects at this time. We do need to circle back to those at some point to do renovations or come up with other ideas on how to maintain our investment in our facilities in the community. But at this time, it was clear that Jefferson was the priority. And so therefore, that's where we focused from that point forward. Also, some of the key aspects here that the survey and the forums brought to the board for consideration. Safety and security was the top priority. Clearly, it was the #1 issue, and it was a clear mandate to make sure we provide for that in any of our thinking for any of our facilities. Also, it created an appropriate learning environment for students. That's where it's all about. It's all about what happens in the classroom. Third, accommodate for students with disabilities. That was a clear theme that came out, and this wasn't only just the Early Childhood Center, this was all schools in the district. Take an innovative and forward-thinking approach in any of our decisions, whether they're renovations or whether they're rebuilds. Keeping repair and renovation costs as low as possible. And again, this was referencing some of our other facilities. Be fiscally prudent and energy conscious. Renovate facilities to support academic and extracurricular experiences. In other words, keep the priority on the kids and what's going on in the classrooms. And finally, maintain green space whenever it's possible. And this theme clearly came out, especially in our forums at Jefferson from the neighbors that live right close to the building. They wanted to make sure that we paid attention to that space that's there. In a mature community, that's always a target to protect that open space. And the work that was done after those sessions, that was a conscious effort that staff and the architects and board paid attention to as we move forward. So here's where we landed. We came back with a couple different models. The board asked us to go back to the Jefferson staff. The Jefferson staff was 100% behind this particular design, called the courtyard design because of the courtyard in the middle of the facility that would allow for the interactive classrooms and play and recreational area for the students in that building. It's also that safety and security feature, especially with 3- and 4-year-old children, was real important with the Jefferson staff. There was also a sense that this facility allowed for that collective nature in a circular environment where the rotation of the movement of the students within the building was very critical. A couple key features to this design as well. To the south of the property, there is significant green space that was added back in. The parking lot at the north end of the property was shrunk down significantly, and the traffic that backs up on Hazelton every day, twice a day, morning and afternoon, will be brought off of the streets and onto the property with the buses in the front of the building and the car traffic in the parking lot area. So there's some very specific design features that went into this property, and there's specific reasons why it landed at this particular design. So some specifics about this particular program-driven school. There's been some questions and legitimate questions about the 2006 design that was put out for the community to take or the board take a quick look at. That design was an initial concept, and I want to stress that. The work that's been done over the last 6 to 8 months by our board and my staff was not done in 2006 because the board made the decision at that time to move Jefferson to the side and focus on how the building we're sitting in this evening. So the work just stopped, kind of like it did with the district office in Woodland today. We just basically stopped that work and put it aside. Even though we had some preliminary ideas, those ideas didn't go any further. And so therefore, that 2006 design and the 2012 design, there were some lessons learned as we went out and did these site visits. We also made some changes. The price of construction also has gone up. And we did add some therapy setting classrooms and also some collaborative workspaces for students and staff into the 2012 design that was not in the 2006 design. And I know I shared that side-by-side comparison with the board. If you have any questions about that, certainly I'm more than open to discussing that further. There are 20 fully accessible classrooms. in this design, 2 of those rooms to be used for very specific therapy environments for the children in that school. Classroom size is program driven. From the original concept, we did knock down those classrooms a little bit because as we did our site visits, we determined that the square footage in those classrooms could be smaller and still be very appropriate for the program that we have at Jefferson. The motor room for physical and occupational therapy, the sensory playground on the design as well, there on the south end of the property. We are going to work collaboratively with the Wheaton Park District. They've done a lot of work on a project that they're currently working on in the community, and we would like this playground / park to be a satellite program in collaboration with them. They've done a lot of legwork on that, and we certainly are going to benefit from that if this project moves forward. So that playground is going to be designed for children 3 and 4 years old with disabilities. The fenced-in green space and open to the community after hours. That was another piece of this, and we want to make sure that collaboration is very important. The safe and secure on-site pickup and drop-off. I already explained that, to making sure our buses and our car traffic is on-site and off of the streets. We always have to pay attention to stormwater management in this project, especially with increasing a building footprint. And finally, the collaborative planning space for instructors and specialists. That was a key add into this design, different from 2006, and that was a lesson learned from the other early childhood centers in other communities. I asked the question in every one of them that I stepped in, what did you do here, or what didn't you do here that you would recommend that we do? And that was a key feature that we made sure that we included in our concept design. The second thing on the item's agenda tonight is the financing. And again, I want to stress a few things and how this project will be funded moving forward. First of all, the board will issue bonds to pay for the project. We will not be able to currently use any operating funds because we have other needs. We have expenditures that we have to pay attention to and obligations. The sale of up to $17.6 million in bonds will not extend the length of our current debt, which ends in levy year 2023, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. Some principal will be amortized out over time, annually. We had that discussion at the December board meeting when we do have the proposal, option number 2, if you remember the 4 that we were looking at, that is on the docket for the approval this evening. Just a reminder, interest rates are at historic lows. There is no better time to do a project like this, and so therefore we would benefit from using historically low interest rates for this project. The district also will be very strategic about it when we issue our bonds to maximize those low interest rates. We may do 2 separate sales and only issue the bonds when we need the money to pay for the project. You know, the bill for the project doesn't come all at one time, and we'll issue the bonds accordingly to make sure that we get the lowest interest rate possible. So what does it look like? The blue lines in this graph, if board members remember, is our current debt. That is the debt that we've incurred for Hubble and for the 2003 referendum for both of our high schools. And the blue lines represent that. So there is an escalated debt structure out over time. The community approved that, and that is currently what's in place to help pay down those expenses for the school, or for this school as well as our 2 high schools. The purple lines would be the lines that we would add to if we were to do the Jefferson project and issue the bonds. Again, a couple key features to this. We would add a little bit each time over the next 10 years, and then the final year, which I will talk about in a minute, there is a change there in that final year. So therefore, this is the bond debt structure that how it would look like moving forward with adding the $17.6 million for the Jefferson project. The first 10 years of the levy years, from 2013 to 2022, this is the impact of what it would be for the taxpayers. And this would be in addition onto whatever else whatever increases in the EAV or other state laws or property tax changes that would take place. This would be just to pay the debt for the $17.6 million. The estimated debt service, which would be interest included, is estimated to be at $23.4 million over the period of 11 years. What does that mean? For a $200,000 home in our community, that means $19 per year for the first 10 years. And that was represented in that chart with the purple lines as compared to the blue lines. For a $300,000 home, that's $30 a year. $400,000 home, it's $40 a year, and a $500,000 home, it's $51 a year. That would be the increase in the debt service that would be included in the taxpayer's bill for this project for the first 10 years. Again, if you look at the first 10 years, it's a very small increase to our current debt service. The last year is a different scenario. And here's what the last year means. In this particular situation, as you saw back there in that chart, if you look at the blue line, it was going to go down a significant amount. And then with the purple lines, it's still going to go down, but it's only going to go down a certain amount. And that's what this chart represents. For a $200,000 home, the existing debt would go down $461 to a homeowner. If we added Jefferson, it would only go down $237 for that 1 year. And then the rest of it would come off. $300,000 home, it would be $708 with our current debt, and down to $364. And again, you can see the same scenario for a $400,000 or a $500,000 home. Basically, this is the difference in the drop. Taxpayers' bills still would go down because our debt is nearly retired, but it would not go down as much with the Jefferson project in that final year. A couple other notes that I want to update the board on is there were some questions, not only from board members, but also I heard it here this evening, operating costs. I want to comment briefly on that. Jefferson Early Childhood Center is 2/3 special education students, 1/3 tuition-based students. Our staffing costs to run that school are paid two different ways. Our tuition-based students, the students at that school, the operating costs for those students are included in the tuition. So however many we have, that's what the tuition is to pay the cost for the teachers. The 2/3 is mandated by state and federal law that we require to have special education students and therapists and specialists to work with children with IEPs. And we have protocols and caseloads and class size expectations that we have to follow regardless of where the kids go to school. If they're at Madison in a classroom, it's the same thing. If they're at Johnson Elementary in a classroom, it's the same thing. If they're at Jefferson in the existing building, it would be the same. If in a new building, it would be the same. The only increased operational cost that and we've done some preliminary work look at this, is minimal, is how I would describe it. We do have an increased floor space. We currently have 1.5 custodials assigned to that. We would have to increase custodial time, but I anticipate in talking with Mr. Farley, we would probably reallocate some of our current custodial time to cover that additional cleaning expectation. We also have an increased footprint for operational costs, heating, cooling, air conditioning. However, with a highly efficient building, we are going to certainly build a school that is going to be highly efficient and would be similar in floor space to one of our elementary schools, such as Lowell. And we estimate that additional cost compared to the current building to like a school the size of one of our elementary buildings, we have an additional $20,000 a year approximately. But that's in the current situation with the building that is not brand new and highly efficient. So it may even be less than that. And I'm talking about heating and cooling, water, air conditioning, things like that. So we would have some additional operational costs. We also may have some savings. We would be bringing staff back, all staff that work with early childhood children back onto one site. We would also gain some efficiencies from transportation. So, you know, we believe it would be primarily cost neutral. We may have some additional costs, but the operating expenses for this building would not take place until the 14-15 school year, or I'm sorry, 15-16. Let me get it right. 15-16 school year, and so we certainly have more than enough time to budget accordingly to make sure our operation and maintenance fund and our custodial costs, you know, are appropriate. So that concludes a summary of the project and also just some quick information about some operational costs. And I'm certainly open to any questions from board members.
And I'm just going to say that the flow here will be that when we get to the action part of it, we'll have Ken, assuming he's still with us, hopefully he's doing well enough to be with us, but and he can read out the resolution and we'll get a motion on the floor. Then we'll have board discussion. But at this point, if there's any questions to clarify just his presentation, that's what I'm looking for so far.
Thanks, Rosemary. Brian, I just wanted you to clarify a couple of comments that were made tonight that I think you may have touched on in your presentation, but I wanted to make sure that the people who made the comments heard the answers. There was a comment made that, you know, why didn't we building a new Jefferson into the budget? Why did we have to go to referendum? So if you could just address that. I think everything else may have been, unless any other board member was writing down the question. Okay, good.
Any type of large capital expense, $17.6 million, is a significant amount of money. We have a $150 million budget, our operating budget on an annual basis, approximately. Some districts are able to create a savings account to be able to pay for those types of projects. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I will say it's highly rare. It's very, very rare. For districts to be able to save or prepare over a period of time to replace an entire school building. Some districts do renovate and do ongoing projects. We've done that in this district. We do major capital projects on an annual basis to what we can afford and what we can budget for. Hopefully, in the next few years, we're going to be in a much better fiscal situation, and we're going to be able to do more of these things as we go and not wait and let things pile up. However, in this particular situation, the district we are currently in the highest recognition status by the state of Illinois, ISB, what our financial situations. We were not there 3 years ago. We are there now, and that's, you know, in relation to this board that have made some very difficult expenditure changes and cuts, and also that paid attention to our revenues and planned accordingly. I believe we're in a very positive budget scenario moving forward. We're going to share that on the 23rd. However, we're not $17.6 million in the bank where we could pay for this project all by itself out of our savings. So that is not something that is common practice. People pay their tax dollars in the AD fund and the operating fund for the education in the classroom. Building projects usually are paid for in a mortgage type of a scenario where you issue bonds and pay for a project like this out over time. One thing to note too, even our bond council shared at the last board meeting, I want to reinforce this, most districts spread debt out over 20 years. And that's what we did back in 2003. That's why we have, you know, we're coming up on the 20 years in 2023 from the original bonds that we issued to renovate the high schools and add on to them. And that was then the plan. When you did Hubble, you shortened that time period. And with Jefferson now, we're even shortening it more, which is very fiscally responsible for a board to be able to do that. That's not easy to do. And our bond council even commented on that at the last meeting, so I wanted to point that out as well. So I do think we do pay attention to this. The board has been very conscious in our finance committee discussions as well as at this table discussing how we're going to pay for this project moving forward.
And when back to paying, I think that's something I read that you wrote, that the government pays for special ed teachers, so part of it?
Yes.
A little bit. Okay. Shoot, Diane, I was thinking comment there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the thought, that since a bond is like a mortgage, if any of us could buy a home and have it paid off in 11 years, we'd be jumping all over that. So it just sounds too good to be true.
Let me just clarify your comment there. You know, special education teachers in the state of Illinois are reimbursed, our full-time special education teachers reimbursed $9,000 per year to the school district. So that does not pay for the entire salary of the teacher, but it is a payment that we receive that follows students with IEPs. So while we don't have the total cost, we do have district dollars that go into paying for all students in the district. We are reimbursed by the state for those staff members at that rate.
Yeah, Brian, during the public comment period, we had one commenter, I think it was Mr. Shaughnessy, who mentioned something about moving, why would we move the playground that's on the south side of the current Jefferson and try to reconfigure the new building so that it would be farther to the north than the concept here. I was on the Jefferson core team, so perhaps you can confirm my understanding and expound if I have said anything wrong. My understanding that the approach that we're using right now allows us to build a new Jefferson while we continually use the current Jefferson so that we don't have to relocate our special ed children and the tuition-based children to other facilities for the year or so it's going to take to build a new Jefferson. Moreover, we tasked our architects to come up with an approach whereby we get more screen space on the south side of the proposed new Jefferson. And what they've proposed is that the current playground for the current Jefferson during the time the construction begins will be moved from the south side of the current Jefferson to the east side to allow construction traffic to maneuver as needed. But that allowed the new Jefferson to be moved farther to the north on the facility as a result. Is that in essence your understanding as well?
You framed that very well. One other issue is stormwater management. You know, we are required by the DuPage County to manage stormwater, so on the north end of that property, when we build a new facility, we're going to have to allow for more concrete on that property, more blacktop on that property, and we have to allow for stormwater storage and management. So up on the northern end of the property, we went as far north as we possibly could. For two, I don't need to restate what you already said. So we can continue using that school for the next couple of years if this issue passes in April. So, but stormwater management is also the other issue. Anything else I missed on that, Mr. Farmer? That was the thinking that went into that, correct?
I think another concept question that came up was why couldn't we have just done a few things over time each year, and would that have resulted in a facility that would have sufficed if we had done that?
This school was built and designed for children ages 5 through 12. It was not built and designed for children ages 3 and 4 years old, which is what we're currently using it today. So the design, everything in that building, from the sinks to the hallways to the design in the classrooms, everything in them is not designed for 3 and 4 years. You would talk a significant amount of renovation. We did the analysis early on, over a year ago. It would cost just as much to add on to and renovate, in fact a little bit more, on the existing building than it would be to build a new one. That's why the board at that time chose to go with the tear down and rebuild on the same property. It's cost effective, and a new facility would be highly energy efficient. That would certainly serve us well in our operation maintenance fund moving forward in the future as well, as this building does here. It's highly efficient and does very well.
Any other questions on the presentation? If not, then I would ask that, Mr. Knicker, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have the wording of the referendum resolution in front of you?
I do.
Okay, can you read that wording out so that, okay, and I have to turn off my mic for you to do that.
Okay, King, go ahead.
Resolution providing for and requiring the submission of the proposition of issuing school building bonds to the voters of Community Unit School District Number 200, DuPage County, Illinois, at the consolidated election to be held on the 9th day of April in 2013.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was going to ask for a motion, but Andy, you beat me to it. And is there a second to adopt that resolution?
We're all pushing our buttons at the same time.
Oh,
I second that.
So moved by Andy and seconded by Joanne. And what I'd like to do now, since this has been an important topic of discussion among the board, is to go around the table and give one last chance for board members to express their opinions and before we proceed to the vote. So Andy, since you made the motion, I'm going to start with you and Ken, and then just move around Well, you can't see which way I'm moving, but go ahead. You start and I'll call out the next.
I'm happy to lead this up. Hopefully you can hear my voice. It's a wonderful technology that's allowing me to participate. I wish I were there with you, certainly, all the more so as being a Hubble right down the street from my home. Anyway, I do want to clarify something. One of the speakers mentioned this evening, when she alluded to Ken, Joanne, and Barb, and a number of us willing to continue with different projects over the years, and referred to me as an incumbent. I am not an incumbent. I am not seeking re-election this year, much as I've loved the last 16 years on the board. But I do think in that light, though, there were also some comments made this evening. It sounded like there might be some younger families in the audience who, obviously there are with kids at Jefferson, that a little bit of history lesson might be in order as to certain things boards have done over the last almost 20 years as to referenda and why we are further down the path with Jefferson. Something I mention every time we approach one of these referendums is, well, what about Jefferson, or when is Jefferson? And somebody else alluded to kicking the can down the road, or what the federal government often does. Well, we have to stop kicking this can down the road, and the time for this is now. I heard Matthew alluded to the book of Matthew, and Ecclesiastes could come into play also. There's a time for everything. And in 99, I believe it was, we addressed the elementary schools. I think there were 13 of them at the time of the referendum. In 03, there was the high school referendum, and at the same time, we did the elementaries. We said, what about the high schools? Well, then when we did the high schools, we said, what about Hubble? And then we addressed Hubble, and the great building you're sitting in right now. And, then once Hubble was done, and during that whole process, it was mentioned, what about Jefferson? What about Jefferson? Well, now is the time for Jefferson. And we could wring our hands over what the feds are going to do, or what they're going to do in Springfield, till the kingdom comes. And we'll not know what they are going to do. There's no better time from a bonding standpoint, interest standpoint, than right now to give the community the opportunity to weigh in on this. If we waited for the perfect time to do a referendum, you would never do a referendum. Because there will always be somebody saying this is not the right time. It's not the right time for reason X, Y, or Z. But let's give the community the opportunity to weigh in on it. It is the time to do it now for Jefferson, and to finally renew and address the one remaining student-centered building that really isn't designed for the kids that it serves. So it's certainly time to move down that path, and I wholeheartedly support putting this on the ballot come spring, and moving this project forward and giving a spade in the ground for the new Jefferson, and I look forward to being there on that day.
Thank you, Andy. Ken, can you go next? We'll get everybody on the phone first.
All right, thank you very much for letting me speak. I again apologize for not being there, but this nationwide flu bug seems to have tackled me even with the flu shot, so I'm not so sure how good flu shots are. I do support putting this referendum on the ballot for April. I think the public has the opportunity and the right to decide for themselves. We're not deciding whether or not this referendum passes tonight. All we're doing is indicating that there's a need, that there are definitely benefits to having a school that meets the programs that we have offered and the ones to come in the future. And I think it's time to let the public decide whether or not we should move ahead with this referendum. When we did the Hubble referendum, there was considerable discussion about putting Jefferson on at the same time. And we chose, as we have all along, as Andy alluded to, in 99 the elementaries, in 2003 the high school, and then the Hubble referendum, and now we're doing the Jefferson referendum. I think it's time for us to move ahead. Those children are near and dear to everyone's hearts, and they have the right opportunity to receive the education through our staff and the programs that are there. We just need to provide the facility that enables them to learn even at a greater pace. We've heard from a number of people from a lot of associations, whether it be Little Friends or the Ray Graham Association, how much the cost is cut by taking care of these youngsters from 0 to 3 and on up to age 4. It's very, very important that we take care of these young children at that age, and how much we as a community and a state and nation save and encourage these children to become citizens that are out spending money, earning money, and enjoying a quality of life that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So I am fully supportive of putting this referendum on the ballot for the communities of our school district to make the decision. And I support not only putting it on the ballot, but I am also in favor of this referendum passing. And it's time that we move ahead and create for us a building that these children can really flourish in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Jim Gambiani, if Ken were here, he would be right next to you, so you're next.
I've got a prepared statement. For me, this referendum is not about building a new Jefferson Early Childhood Center, but rather about any new building and capital spending. I believe that the current and future financial health of the district is the highest priority at this time. While this referendum is $17.6 million, the real cost will be an additional $23 million of financial burden to this district. This amount would increase the overall debt obligation for the district to $282 million payable over the next 11 years. In fact, the annual debt obligation will balloon to nearly $30 million in 2022 from the current annual debt of $16 million. While the budget projections for the next 5 years suggest a balanced budget each year, these forecasts only include a small portion of the potential $9 million a year teacher pension burden that can be placed on this district or the District 200 families. This potential teacher pension obligation, combined with the current and proposed debt obligation, could place the district in financial stress. Additionally, if District 200 families would choose to not support funding this potential teacher pension obligation, the district could be forced to eliminate teachers, increase class sizes, or reduce programs. Simply put, the future revenue streams may be outpaced by increasing debt obligations and expenses. In closing, because of these financial dynamics that exist today, I believe that a more prudent approach would be to delay any building referendum or capital spending until the board has a full understanding of the financial impact that teacher pension reform might have on the district, as well as future revenue challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Drummond.
I'm going to put my comments in some context. I ran for the board for the first time in the spring of 2011, and when I campaigned for this board seat, I visited every school in the district and met with each principal. For the first time in my almost 30 years in Wheaton, I visited Jefferson during that campaign, and as soon as I walked through the doors, I said, there's something unique about this building, and I made it known when I ran for the board. So that's the context that my comments are going to be given. We all acknowledge the inadequacy of the current Jefferson. We need to replace it. It's too much of a challenge to the children that attend that school. It's certainly a challenge and a burden to the staff at that school. We've explored the option of remodeling the current facility, and that's not a realistic option. So the only realistic option we have to address this crying need is to build a new Jefferson. I believe that we've done our due diligence. As a lawyer, as a practicing lawyer for 33 years, I have an understanding of what due diligence requires, and I am convinced that this administration and this board has done that due diligence. We've had conversations and discussion with the staff at Jefferson as to what their needs are. Our core committee, our representatives of our core Jefferson committee visited other early childhood learning centers in this area to learn what was going on there, what they would do differently if they could do it all over again. And we've addressed those needs in the concepts, and we've given our architects direction to address those needs in coming up with the concept. We've also engaged in comprehensive community forums and surveys. We've gotten feedback. We've adjusted the concepts, the architectural concepts, to meet the needs and concerns that were expressed during those community forums and surveys. And we've also done our financial due diligence. We had PMA here in December to give us the chart that's displayed up here in their analysis. We have restored the financial soundness of this district within the last 3 years. Much of that due to the veteran board members here, to which I'm very appreciative, so that I didn't have to face that burden after I got elected a year and a half ago. But also we've received reimbursement money from the state that's helped us tremendously. Our bond rating is, our financial rating is Superintendent Harris pointed out, is excellent. It is always difficult to project future financial needs and obligations. However, it has been the responsibility and duty of this board over the years to monitor our bond obligations. Indeed, just earlier this year, we not only used the proceeds of the sale from the Hubble property to pay down some of our bonds, but we refinanced a major portion of our bond obligation to take advantage of the current low interest rates. We know that there is a upcoming spike, if you will, in the bond obligations in the future, and that spike is going to be there whether we build a new Jefferson or not. But this board and future members of this board is aware of that, and there are means to take care of that by refinancing bonds and avoiding that spike. But it's difficult to project future financial obligations, whether it be bond obligations or teacher pension obligations. We've heard from the superintendent tonight that preliminarily we believe that we might be able to address and meet our pension obligations within our current operating budgets for the next 5 years. Again, I understand that's a difficult projection to get our arms around, but it's being made. It's being made by experienced, responsible people here. We responded to community input. We reconfigured the proposed conceptual building to meet the community needs and to address the concerns of the neighbors. We even reduced the size of the footprint somewhat to address those needs, and also the cost of the building over the last 3 or 4 months, the projected cost of the building. I recognize the concerns of the community and the debate between those who support and favor the new Jefferson and those who are concerned over the cost and the property taxes that will be incurred. But the law requires us, as a board, to put this issue to a vote via referendum if we are to proceed. And we do not make it unilateral about whether to build a new Jefferson among the board. We have to put that out to the community. In my opinion, our fiduciary obligation as a board is to put that out to the community. If we don't, then that portion of the community, that substantial portion of the community that supports the building of a new Jefferson won't be heard. They won't have a chance. By putting it out to referendum, we give voice to those who support the new Jefferson, and we give voice to those who are opposed to it because of tax burdens or financial worries. That's all we're doing by putting this on referendum. We're meeting our financial obligation, our fiduciary obligation to put this out to the voters. And whether you support it or not as a member of the board, my opinion is that we have this fiduciary obligation to put this on the referendum and the ballot. I believe that even if I was opposed to the construction of the new Jefferson, which of course I'm not, I still have that same fiduciary obligation. So I'm supporting putting this question on the ballot in April.
Thank you, Joanne. Just 2 things. One, I think we're charged to look after the best interests and the best education for all our children. And we've done a very good job with our AP students, our ELL, all our average kids, the ones that need extra help. And so to not, these 3 to 4, 5-year-old children, and especially the special needs ones, are our responsibility and to give them a facility where they can do their best. The teachers have the best facility. How we can deprive them of that, I don't understand because of the cost. If for 11 years, if you have to pay between $20 and $50 a year for that, how can you deprive a child and all of these children of that? That makes no sense to me. I know we're all on budgets, and worried about that, but that is a nominal amount of money for these special children. Also, I've been a realtor for 17 years, and I can tell you that the reputation of our district, I've said that many times to our board members and I hope to the administration, that the reputation of this school district totally affects our home values. And in any towns, because people move to a town or stay in a town because of the reputation of the district. And ours is exceptional. I hear practically every day why people want to move here. So if our facilities, if it's all part of facilities and teachers is not exceptional, that reputation is going to go down and your home values will go down. Yes, the downside is because of our home values being up, your taxes are going to be up a little bit, but it coincides with your home values. And I can promise you that our taxes actually are at par or less than most of our surrounding towns. So I just think it's imperative that we build this building, that we can have such pride in it, and it's just another reason that people will think we're an exceptional town, an exceptional district, and we can be very proud of it.
Thank you. Barb? Yeah, I have a son who's the same age as one of Mr. Roman's sons, and I'll never forget, when he was in first grade, there was a child with special needs in his classroom. And my son used to always help him, and I one day went in and questioned the teacher and said, you know, I see my son, because I would work in the classroom, and I'd see my son, you know, helping this special needs child, and I'm just questioning, you know, how much, you know, is my son being taught, and is my son learning? Because every time I went in there, you know, he was helping somebody else. And she looked me straight in the eye, and she said to me, Barbara, she said, I just want you to know that that child enriches your son's education and your son's life as much as your son enriches his. I never forgot that. And it made me stop and think. And I will tell you that I was so grateful to have that little boy in my son's life. It just, I don't know, I can't even, I get choked up when I think about it now. Unfortunately, you heard the lady speak tonight about how Illinois is not a friendly state. That family, I think, in second or third grade moved to Minnesota because it was a more supportive state for children with disabilities. Anyway, I think it's time to ask the community. I agree with everything Mr. Roman said about this is not something that is in our hands. It's something that belongs in your hands. And it's time for the community to essentially give us a referendum on how well we are managing the finances of the district. If the voters of this district feel that we're not in good shape, that we need to be alarmed, that we shouldn't take out more debt, they will tell us that in this referendum. It's not our decision to make. It is our decision to let you make that decision. That is our position. So I'm hoping and I'm confident that the community will have its voice, have its say. I'm also confident that if the community has questions about our financial condition, they will ask them and they will get valid answers. Valid, honest answers. I'm confident that the leadership of our district and the financial management of our district, our finance committee, on which Mr. Gambiani sits with Mrs. Swanson, that they're very prudent in doing a good job, and they have recommended this plan of action. I also remember something an old IBMer told me, somebody from your company, Jim, and he said, if you wait to cross town until all the stoplights are green, you will never leave your home. So I think that's how I'm approaching this. I think it's time to move on and get this done.
Thank you. I fully support bringing this question to the voters. And let me start where Andy started, talking a little bit about how come it took so long to get here as one of those veteran board members. You know, we did, Jefferson has been on our radar screen for a long time. So it's not for lack of caring. And when we were going to do the referendum for Hubble, we very seriously were wanting to put it on. And part of the reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we didn't at that time, was because we realized we need to take more time to find out what Jefferson really should look like in order to meet the needs of the population, as opposed to just rushing it on with, as we now see, a design where we would have been one of those buildings that people would have been visiting saying, what do you think you should have done differently? Never realizing that then was going to come 2008. You know, I think our plans were to finish Hubble and then in an orderly way move on at an appropriate time. And then came 2008, and we all know what happened in 2008 with the economy. So, and so Jefferson has waited in that time. So I understand that the concerns that some may have about the unknowns in our economy. But my feeling is if communities don't keep moving forward, they move backward. And I don't think that our will to move forward should be held hostage to the gridlock of the federal and state levels. The only way we move forward as a community is to continue to invest in ourselves. And the Jefferson Project, to me, is a good investment, the best investment, because it fits the values of our communities. You know, we know from the survey, but more importantly, we know from living among our friends and neighbors that they value the quality of our education. They support efforts, any efforts, that directly improve life and learning for students. I mean, they support that with their time and with their money and their efforts. But most importantly, they have a heart for helping each other, and especially for helping those that they see have some challenges and maybe need a little extra help. And I really believe our community has a special part in that area. So it would be nice if we had a crystal ball to know when all those lights were green, or what's going to be happening between now and the next general session and the next debt ceiling fight and all of that kind of stuff. But our decision point is now. We have to make the decision now by law in order to get it on the referendum or on the ballot. So in my experience, voters do a pretty good job of getting things right. And I trust the voters in April with all the information and all of what happens between now and April. I trust the voters to make the best decision for this community and for the students of Jefferson. So I say, let's do this. That being said, any final comments? I would call for the vote.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Keitel?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
No.
Mrs. Intihar?
Yes.
Mr. Knicker?
Yes.
Mr. Vroman?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes. Motion carries and the resolution will go on the ballot. Thank you very much. Very good. I won't stop that fast. We do have a second business item, but if you wish to leave, we understand it. And basically what we're going to be doing is approving the finance model for Jefferson Early Childhood Center referendum, which is exactly what you saw talked about tonight and presented. So I don't know if you need to go over it any further. Yeah, I think it was covered in the presentation. It's in our report. It's called option 2. For those of you who may be looking online and you wonder what happened to the other options, that's just the name of the option that we chose from the 4 original that we had. So, based upon that, not, I'm looking for a motion to pursue option 2, which is the financing model that was outlined tonight for Jefferson.
So moved.
I'm going to give this one to Jim, yes. Moved by Jim and seconded by Andy. Is there any discussion on this? If not, I will call for the vote, and remember to vote now.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes, motion is approved. And now we move on to written reports. We had one FOIA report. Hopefully you took a look at that. Reports from board members. I don't think there's been any committee work, but is there anything we need to know about? No. The only small thing is, believe it or not, ISB is once again, it's that time to start thinking about presentations to the national conference. So is in your thinking anything that you think we ought to consider, submitting for a presentation in terms of excellent work that, they can look at? That's what you should get back to me on. Topics for future discussion. Topics for future discussion, curriculum updates, financial forecasting, you talked about that, you're hearing that starting at the next Committee of the Whole. Our next time we get together as a group here will be Committee of the Whole, January 23rd at the SSC. Then there actually is a chance to chat. Everybody remember this, January 26th at 9 to 10:30 in the morning. That's the time for the public to come and chat with us informally. There's no action taken, nothing like that. It's just chatting and maybe some coffee. And that is also at the SSC. Our next regular business meeting will be February 13th at Pleasant Hill. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items? There are none? Okay, we have need for closed session, personnel items and pending litigation, no action will be taken. Do I have a motion to adjourn? It's cramping your style, right, Barb? Okay, so it's moved by Barb and it's seconded by Jim. Call for the vote.
Mrs. Interhart?
Yes.
Mr. Broman?
Yes.
Mr. Knicker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes, we are adjourned to closed session. Thank you, everybody, for attending.